Presenting the original Frustrator version 2.
Over 6 years ago, Evil Wurst's original Frustrator base exploded in popularity. It quickly became one of YouTube's most watched base designs, but it slowly vanished over meta changes and updates. So I took it and redesigned it for 2025. As the name suggests, this base is a nightmare for offline raiders. And in the rare event that you do get online, rest assured that you're covered from every angle. I've tried to stay as close as I could to the original design while adding a few modern day tweaks to make this the perfect solo, duo, trio base. For those of you who haven't seen or don't remember the original, you get a full wraparound open core, 3 unsplashable drop down loot rooms, and building my version, I've also incorporated bedrooms and a full peek down and roof floor. And for its 50 rocket raid protection, this base comes at a cheap price even for a solo. But enough said, let's jump into a base tour and you can decide if you want to build this for your next wipe. You can see just how strong the roof floor is even though it doesn't incorporate traditional peek downs. We'll jump up to the roof in just a second, but for now, through one of our 2 entrances, we'll head into the bedroom. Entering the first pod, we have plenty of space for traps as well as 2 beds and an inner ankle biter peak to clear your core in the event of an online raid. This pod leads us into the wraparound core as you saw in the intro. This base offers tons of depot storage and a couple main loot rooms on the back side as well. On the opposite side of the base, we have yet another entrance with a 2nd bedroom and another peek into the core. We'll go over all 3 drop down bunkers in just a second, but for now, upstairs to the roof floor. You can see up here on either side of the jump up, we have 2 roof peek downs, which allow you to easily retake your roof if you happen to get overrun. Along with this, a basic 2-door airlock, and outside I incorporated a ton of different peaks for close range, medium range, or long range fights. These small gap peaks are very difficult to fight against, especially if you're on the ground, which gives you a crazy upper hand. But the roof floor is just an addition to the Frustrator you all know and love. Its main highlight are the 3 drop down loot rooms, which you can load up with traps to infuriate any offline or online raiders. Once finished, each side will take a minimum of 22 rockets to raid. And while this design is based around affordability, if you'd like something a little stronger, you can easily add just a little bit of honeycomb to increase the raid cost significantly. As you just saw, we have 2 regular drop down bunkers, and the 3rd one houses 3 large boxes and the TC in the center of our base. Let's have a look at the upkeep, and then I'll show you how to build the super simple starter that you can place down in just a few seconds. And because the starter is so cheap, you could build 2 or 3 of these around the map until you find the perfect base location and begin expanding. And just a quick note, don't forget to place your TC as far back as possible so you have an easy time upgrading everything around it later on. Now, while I place in the recommended deployables, if you guys haven't seen my channel before, don't forget to subscribe. I really appreciate it and it would make my day. Then we can add the following 3 foundations on either side of the starter. Then honeycomb the closest triangle to the 1x1, and we'll also add a jump up to the roof just so we can build the drop down in the later steps. Quickly, I want to mention, you'll notice throughout this base build, I replicate a ton of the base symmetrically on the other side. So you'll notice I skipped through quite a few of the steps that I've already shown once before, but just know it's the exact same. And before you seal in the drop down, don't forget to place in either a furnace or a half-height floor tile. So this is what the first starter expansion should look like. Let's now move on and add a little more honeycomb as well as a few more airlock doors. Notice that if you place all 3 doors facing towards the inside of the triangle, you'll get a nice 3-door airlock to the outside. While I build in the other side, head down to the comments and tell me what base you'd like to see next. I try to read through them all and I really appreciate your guys' feedback, and sometimes I'll even build some of the recommendations. Make a note of where I place the wall frame. It's not in between the 2 floors, but instead on the very top. So once finished, just head downstairs and double check that you can still place a half wall on the jump up. Now, I know how important it is to have an early game roof access and some peek downs if possible, so I've went ahead and incorporated one into the starter base. I think you'll find it super useful, especially in primitive fights. Also, if you ever want these peaks to be a little bit wider, you can upgrade the stone roofs to a DLC skin, and this will remove the bottom pieces of the roof and allow you to peek more easily. Now, just like the second floor, we're going to add another basic 3-door airlock. And note, if you don't have the metal frags to spend on all these doors, you can just add one on each side, and feel free to add them in throughout the wipe as you progress. This is our starter expansion finished, and now let's head down to the TC room and begin the next step by upgrading everything down here to metal. Next, building off either side of the jump up to our front door, we're going to add the layout for what will be our bedrooms. And we'll make a new jump up with another floor triangle through the wall, just like this. If you have the horizontal embrasure, try to use it now. If not, a glass window or even just window bars will work just fine. Take a second and make sure you're all caught up to this point before you begin the next step, which is adding in our 2 loot rooms on either side of the TC. And remember, before you seal yourself in, have a furnace on you, or you can just make it a triangle half-height floor tile, whichever you'd prefer. Then let's just connect these 2 sections together with honeycomb down below, and we'll add windows on top, which will eventually be our square loot rooms. Now, since we sealed in the loot rooms, we haven't had a jump up, so let's go ahead and add one in on either side of the square foundation on both sides of the base. So your base should look something like this once complete, and now we can begin placing in some boxes downstairs in the 2 new loot rooms. Now, starting with the box under your shelf, copy all of the placements to get all 6 boxes for the drop down loot room. I'll come back to this room later and do the final upgrades, but if you have extra metal, feel free to upgrade everything now. Of course, doing the other drop-down loot room is the exact same process. If you come into this problem where a box doesn't fit, it's likely because of the wall frame. Make sure you upgrade it to either a stone skin, or you can upgrade it straight to metal, and the box should place no problem. Back outside, let's hide that TC drop-down by honeycombing with triangles. And don't forget to honeycomb the other 2 stone drop downs on the opposite sides. Now, I'm going to replace all of the main wraparound double doors for garage doors, but you can do this as you progress throughout the wipe. There's no rush. Here's where I like to place my workbench, and sometimes research table, locker, or repair bench. And on a side note, if you have the glass window, it can be useful to seal this in just until we get the bedrooms down. Speaking of which, let's seal in the bedroom. But beforehand, jump under this floor and upgrade the half wall that's under your window. This is very important because we won't be able to reach it later in the following steps. As usual, do the same thing on the other side of the base, just don't forget to upgrade that half wall before you seal everything in. And lastly, for the back side of the base, let's add in those square loot rooms that we saw in the intro. At this point, your base should be starting to look like the original Frustrator. And just like we did with our loot room walls, let's go ahead and upgrade all of the roof tiles, floor pieces, and any of the main walls to metal that's in our core. Feel free to customize these square loot rooms in any way you'd like. If you'd like to do them like mine, here's how to get the shelf placed inside. You may also want to add ramps to these loot rooms, but here's the basic design I went with. Once that's finished, let's add airlocks to make both entrances just a little bit safer. Now that we've got an airlock, we can finish up the door path and also implement the bedrooms. As you saw in the intro, I find this a great place to put a trap. With 2 beds and 2 boxes above, here's what the bedroom should look like once finished. And on the opposite side, feel free to place any deployables such as mixing tables, repair benches, or lockers. And try to follow along with my upgrades to metal around the bedrooms. Once again, if you don't have the metal frags, just upgrade everything in stone and you can come back to it later when you're rich in the white. And you guys already know we're going to do the exact same upgrades for the opposite side bedroom as shown here. Alright, so this section is optional right now, but you can also do this after you finish the peak downs. We're going to upgrade all the walls that surround the bedrooms. Don't forget to do all the roof tiles and foundations as well. And then we're going to do the same thing on the 4-box loot room side. And lastly, on the other bedroom as well. The goal for the rest of the wipe should be for you to upgrade all of your drop downs to armored. It's mainly just those 4 walls. Don't worry about the roof, and you'll see why in just a second. And another important upgrade is to do all the walls and the roof piece around your TC. Here are the final deployables for the TC loot room, and note that you can place a vending machine bunker in front of the TC. The reason I didn't implement a bunker in this video is because recently the vending machines have been slightly changed, and so it's much easier to splash a TC out with expo ammo and you don't even need to break the vending machine. So instead of dealing with a bunch of angry commenters, I'm just gonna place an armor door on there, which equals the exact same raid cost. Back upstairs, you'll notice I placed these shelves, and you can fit turrets on top of every one. And these are going to ensure that no one drills straight down into the tops of your drop down. Now go through both drop downs, upgrading the 4 back walls to armored, and then the foundations and side walls to metal. The third side is the exact same as the other 2. For a little added protection, I like to upgrade the entire upper peak of our base to metal, but this is up to you if you have some extra resources. At this point, you finish the entire base. All that's left to do is to add the peak downs and the main roof floor. Now, I would highly recommend upgrading your peak down frames and foundation to metal, but if you don't have the resources, it's not required. Repeat these peaks on the opposing two sides. Then let's build those close range peek downs that you saw in the intro. I'd recommend starting on top of one of your two entrances, and you're going to place in floors like this, followed by window frames on top. Once again, upgrade these straight to metal if you have the resources, if not, stone is fine for now, and then finish it off with a floor at roof height. Repeat this on all 6 sides and you should end up with a nice symmetrical base. Each section should have a window frame up in front and 2 low walls on either side to protect your head. Then in between the two, to offer myself a longer range peak, I like to go with a raised window and 2 triangle roof pieces to prop myself up. I find for this base, horizontal embrasures are much stronger, so I'm going to add those for every window. And my last recommendation would be adding some ramps on every square, which will help you get a bit of elevation in your peaks. Just a quick note about adding those turrets you saw in the intro. You can do so easily by upgrading one side of the ramp, place your turret and hook it up, and then upgrade the other side to hide it. Of course, if you need to reach it again, you can just build up from outside, but these are great for defending against door campers or raiders. And with that said, the base is finished. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.